Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to ICU with Karla Sue, where we learn and celebrate shining our light through mindset, music, and movement. Today, I have a wonderful special guest for the show, Kelli Melissa Reinhardt. You may know her from being the warrior for mental health. I didn't want to screw that up. She's the founder of Make Mental Health Matter, and she's got a television program here on E360 TV. And she's got a very special story to share with all of us. And as I said last time, and every single time, people who do remarkable things have to go through remarkable circumstances in their lives to create that level of contribution. So before we get to Kelli, I'd like you to take a quick look at this, and then we're going to hop right in.
Hi, I'm Kelli Melissa Reinhardt, host of Make Mental Health Matter. Join me on Mondays at 11 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the Achieve TV network right here on E360 TV.
Kelli, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think I need to update that commercial that you just ran.
Isn't it funny how we get reminders from time to time? I mentioned earlier that for people to do remarkable things in the world, we often find that they've had to go through some pretty remarkably horrendous circumstances. Is that true with you?
Yeah, I actually lost my middle sister who died by suicide in 2017. And that's really what led me into the work that I do today with my nonprofit.
That's fantastic. And I understand that only a year after your sister's tragic, successful suicide, that you just started hitting the pavement, so to speak, to try to do what?
Yeah, I actually, before my sister passed, I was helping another nonprofit who really focused on adolescent risky behavior, the choking game, and suicide. And that really, when my sister passed, I just made a choice that I wanted to help, even if it was only one person at a time. And my coping mechanism for that first year was just continuing to go. And I ultimately hit what I call the virtual wall. And I had to step back and I had to take care of myself. And I didn't realize till that moment that I wasn't actually really living. I was just surviving. And it wasn't until I found a really amazing community in 2018 that really started my trajectory into the nonprofit space, because what I realized was that I had paired two traumas together, which was my sister's death, but also my son had seizures on the day of her celebration of life. And so I was just living in fear that whole entire first year of losing anybody else. And once I realized that and I was able to shift and change the fear into curiosity, then that's what set me on this path, really, of starting my nonprofit and wanting to educate myself and educate anybody else around me that would actually listen.
That's fantastic. I bet you found a lot of people were willing to listen.
I did much more than I thought. I mean, and I think it's a true statement for anybody that really goes through grief and loss or a sudden tragedy. It's, you feel very alone. You're like, nobody understands what I'm going through, and I just have to do this myself. And those were a lot of the feelings that I was having at that moment. But once I started just mentioning or saying, hey, I want to start a nonprofit, like, I want to do this, I want to help people, there were so many people around me that were like, yes, you can do that. And I was like, okay. And then I actually, one of my friends and mentors at the time, he challenged me. He was like, raise the money. How much do you need to raise to start a nonprofit? And I was like, I have no idea, but I know it's in this ballpark. And he's like, well, I challenge you to raise that in 24 hours. And I was like, okay, and a challenge accepted. And that's pretty much how I got the start of my nonprofit. Was I had a whole bunch of amazing people inside this community that knew that I could absolutely make this into something, and they all supported me by backing me to be able to like really go out and start the nonprofit, file the paperwork, and do all of that through the IRS. So
That's fantastic. A couple of things that I picked up on. You wanted to start and sustain the conversation about mental health. It just points to how powerful we are. One voice, one truly gritty, authentic story of loss can transform the entire world. And nobody was talking. They were silent until you said, I think I might want to start a nonprofit. And then you gave everyone the permission to join in on the conversation.
yeah, I I actually talk a lot about that, the power of one, because you never know what you can accomplish with one single person or with one single voice. And it's true. The power of one is so, so powerful. And that's where I was like, even if I could just save one life, I couldn't save my sister's life, but if I could save one through what I'm doing, then
Mhm.
I think I'm doing my job. And it's become much more than that. And that conversation is just the biggest part of everything that we do.
It's it's just so important and so extraordinary, and yet we find resilience of the human spirit in people who can weather that storm and use those feelings to really help other people. So it's just so important what you're doing. I was wondering though, you were talking about how that first year you were just running because it felt it propelled you and it kept you sane. Then you burnt out, which you also discuss in your TEDx talk. Um, for our viewers at home, when you were in that first year of PTSD, so PTSD starts 30 days after a big traumatic event. For the first 30 days, we're in acute stress disorder. When PTSD sets in, it's just the same thing, just for longer. How was your memory? You were so active and so busy. And with PTSD, oftentimes we find that we just have a fog. What was your experience like?
Yeah, and almost every survivor I talk to also, it's this fog. Again, I had a 1.5-year old and I had to be mom. I had to keep going. I couldn't just sit there and not do anything. Or that was a story that I told myself. But I'm the youngest of our family. And for whatever reason, I am not normally somebody that steps up and like takes that role of like having to be strong for everybody else.
Mhm.
But at that moment, I just felt like I had to for some reason. And that was part of the just keep going, because I knew that was my coping mechanism, is to stay busy. And yes, I had just a fog. Like I remember pieces of that year, and I remember a lot of people reaching out, and I remember I was trying to contain the what I call the media frenzy around my sister and how she passed, and I was still in that place of I don't want to tell anybody, because I felt very ashamed that our family didn't know, because she had attempted 6 other times years prior. And at those moments, we knew when it was happening, and this one we didn't. And I think, yeah, that fog, it's huge. And the virtual wall that I hit was something super silly at work. I worked at a corporate job at that moment, and they were moving me from one team to another team. And I just had a breakdown. And my supervisor at the time was actually an intern supervisor. And he looked at me, he was like, I'm not really sure what to do with this information, but I think you should take a leave of absence. I was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. So I did. And I luckily worked for a corporation that offered employee benefits.
Mhm.
And I was able to get 10 free sessions. And that was huge, just to be able to talk to somebody, because I hadn't been talking. I had just kept going.
Mm-hmm. So just for the audience, again, what Kelli Melissa Reinhardt is sharing here with us is sort of a recipe for a soup of support. So she found that when she had her vision and voiced it to the world, it became fact. And here's another fact. She was helped by her employee benefits to receive the care that she needed. So we understand the fundamental need for care so that everybody's got a shot. Just want to make that clear to everybody that it's important for all of us to always consider the collective. But that's just me on my soapbox.
That is true.
In my own personal experience, my memory was terrible. I remember the first couple of years in like an impressionist painting, like maybe snippets. Survival is amazing. Our body is able to keep us going, keep us as safe as it can. It has a wisdom that we just would do ourselves well to check into. We're going back to Kelli now because it's about her. Tell me about, there's always those couple of cases, families or kids or whomever that we work with that impacts us as much as we help them. Do you have anybody like that that you could share?
I do. I was saying earlier that I had this community that I ended up finding, and it was actually one of my friends that she mentioned that she was going to this 3-day seminar, and it was called The Greatest Year of Your Life. And she's like, it's going to be great. And we're going to have fun. And I was like, okay. I'm like all motivated. And I was excited because I was like, I've been in this funk and now I'm like going back to work and I really like still need support, like you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And I went to this 3-day seminar expecting to just be super motivated. And the first day I was bawling the whole entire day. And I was like, what is happening? But it ultimately was that I was able to start shifting all of that trauma that I experienced. And what I found is called, it's Neuro-Linguistic Programming, or NLP. Mm-hmm. And there was one process that we did that was called The Day You Were Born. And it took me back to when I was born. And of course, my sister was there, and it all became about her. And the really interesting part for me was that I, for the first time, and I didn't even know this was something that I needed, but I was able to forgive her and forgive myself, which I didn't even know that I needed, because I was still stuck in that story, what I call now the hoodoo voodoo woulda, shoulda, coulda, wouldas, you know, because I was like, what could I have done? What should I have done? How could I have helped her? Right? Like the story was just playing over and over in my head. And at that moment, I was just able to forgive. And that was so powerful for me, because then I could step out. And I'm not saying that the fog just magically went away, because kind of like you were saying, is that we have these snippets. And I don't even think it was till maybe year 3 or 4 that I came out of that full fog, right? And there's still moments that I feel like I shift in and out of that fog. And I just now call it a journey. It's a journey that I'm on. And sometimes I have really good days and sometimes I have really bad days, and that's okay. And so being able to just learn and experience and grow with whatever is coming at me, I think has just been a really important part of my journey. And then also just translating it into more understanding, because that's what I chose to do. Is I wanted to get educated. I wanted to learn more about not only neuro-linguistic programming, but also what is the trauma that I experienced? Why am I living in fear? What is this all about? Why did my sister choose to take her life? And how can I help people? And that's how I've really shifted into this place of empowerment that has really helped me throughout my healing journey.
It's beautiful. Every time I hear it, it's still beautiful. I sought to understand, I learned, and I did something with it really, really great. Now, here's something I have zero expertise in, neuro-linguistic programming. Please share with our audience, because I cannot, what that is, why we do it, and how it works.
Absolutely. It is really a modality if you want to talk about it in that fashion, but ultimately it works with your unconscious, your conscious mind, and then your higher self. And it's really an understanding of why we as humans have certain patterns and beliefs in our life that ultimately, like a routine. So every single morning, if you wake up, maybe you go to the bathroom, then you brush your teeth, and then you go to work, you get some coffee,
Sounds
that
like
routine. Yeah, like, normal. But that's a routine. It's a pattern that we've learned throughout our life. And when we talk about like grief or loss, right, we get into these patterns of sadness or depression, or sometimes we're able to shift out of those into celebration. And those are the patterns or the beliefs that we can start to change. So, like I talked about earlier, is that I was really living in fear because I had ultimately paired two traumas together. But through neuro-linguistic programming and the processes that we did, I was able to go back to that specific moment, and I made the choice to change it from fear into curiosity. And I am one of those people that I'm like, this doesn't work. I don't know if it's going to. And then I got home, and interestingly enough, because I was really at a place that I was pushing everybody away, including my son, and I'd go 0 to red in 2.5 seconds, which was another way that I was coping negatively. And I went home, and what would have triggered me before, I looked at my son and I was like a dog. Like I literally turned my head like a dog, like being really curious of why is he doing that? And then I was like, there's no way that just worked. That it works that fast. And so that's when I got more interested in, well, if this can help me in one day, in 1 to 2 sessions, then what could it do for me to be able to heal and then also help others in that healing process? And so I've just kept leveling up over the years, and I now am a coach and a trainer and a consultant, and it's just been so empowering for me in my life. And
that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. Is it possible to do a demonstration right now of how it works? Like you tell me to say or act in a certain way, and you, okay, tell
I
me.
could, yeah.
Okay, let's role play it. Tell me, what am I doing? Who am I?
So maybe if you, well, one process that I really love to use myself, it's called clearing the now. So if you're having a super chaotic day, let's just pretend like today was the most chaotic day you ever have had. And before you came here, there was a lot going on, and there's still a lot going into your head because of all the things that were there before. So if you, so go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to think about your now. And if you were to show me with your arms, how big is your now?
What is now? Can we
So,
define now?
yeah. So you right now in this moment, how big does it feel?
It's interesting now that I'm attending to it, it feels as if it's growing. I felt, because I've been ill, coming into this program today with you, really expansive. And I would say I was about here.
Okay.
That's where I had been. I'm growing to about here now. So that's where I am.
Okay. So now I want you to just notice what is in your now. And I want you to allow your unconscious mind to put like with like. So work with work, life with life, family with family, and just allow your unconscious mind to organize that. But at the same time, move anything that doesn't belong in your now into either the future or the past.
Okay.
So that thing that you may be doing after this, you can put that into your future. Or the thing that you did right before you came here, you can put that into your past.
Or a really, really hurtful exchange with someone in my family that I've been wrestling with today. So we'll do that. Okay, let's put
Yeah.
somewhere.
So put that into either the future if it's something that you need to deal with in the future, or if it's something that you maybe can leave in the past, go ahead and put it over there. Wherever it belongs, but just know that your unconscious mind can move and transport those things easily and effortlessly. And then
Uh-huh.
allow your unconscious mind to now float into your past and notice what you notice here that's in your past. Again, allowing your unconscious mind to organize like with like, family with family, work with work, life with life. And once it's all organized, just let me know.
It's a big task.
Your unconscious
There
mind
you
can
go.
do
It's
that
like
easily.
Tetris. It's
Yeah.
like Tetris. Okay.
Good. Now I want you to float into your future. And again, knowing that your unconscious mind can easily and effortlessly organize the like with like, family with family, work with work, life with life. And just let me know once you feel like the future is all organized.
Mm. Yeah, I got it.
Good. Now, I want you to float back into your now. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. Nice.
You.
Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, that's truly joyful. It and you know what? I liken it in my mind because it's a storm. It's very busy. It sort of speaks to boundaries.
Mm.
So where am I going to allow my energy? Where am I going to share it? And is something going to bleed into me that I don't want to bleed into me? So by putting it in these succinct categories, and if you're not a visual person, you may not see it the way that I see it. People probably see it all sorts of ways. And boundaries, I just want to complete that thought. Boundaries, a really good way of explaining them is where Karla Sue ends and Kelli Melissa begins. We're touching there. We will know if our boundaries are crossed, if they're unstated, which they often are. What we will accept is a boundary, for example. We will know our boundary is crossed if it breaks through and it causes us discomfort. We're pissed off, we're sad, we're confounded. That's when you know your boundaries are crossed. What a wonderful, and that's neurolinguistic. That was an excellent example of neurolinguistic programming for our audience. Is that true?
Yeah, that's just one of the processes. It's one of the basic processes that we do, and there's a lot more that we can go into as far as just resolving or changing or enhancing. Maybe there's something that you want to enhance, but ultimately it just gives you more choice in life, more choice in our day to day. And a lot of times, with that one helps clear anxiety or worry, because sometimes we're living in the future, sometimes we're living in the past. But if we can just be present in the now at this very moment, then
Mhm.
we can resolve a lot of those emotions. And there's lots more depth in the neuro-linguistic programming, but yeah, ultimately it's just working with your unconscious mind to give you more choice and wholeness.
That's so helpful. So helpful. Thank you. As a neuroscientist, I'm curious about the actual words neuro-linguistic programming. Can you explain that?
So it works with your brain, or your brains. So you have your
Mhm.
head, heart, and your gut. They're
Your
all
gut.
your brains. And then the words that we use. But ultimately it was founded way, way back in the day. I can't even say like the exact time, but ultimately there were like not Freud time, so it was past Freud time, but ultimately they just started learning that we can start to change any patterns that people have, and then we can also, like, I may believe that I'm just going to throw this out. Maybe somebody believes that they can't be healed, or maybe they feel like they're always going to be depressed, or you
Broken.
might have heard the things, yeah, or I'm broken, or if I didn't have bad luck, I wouldn't have luck at all, right? Like, we hear those words that people say,
Okay.
but we can get down to the layers of, like, where did that come? Why are you stuck in that pattern? How can we get you out of that pattern and start to shift? But they started noticing this. They're psychologists and therapists, and they really are wanting to cue in on the neuro aspect of it. So your head, heart, gut, and then the linguistics, or how we are running the patterns of our life, which is the programming, where the programming comes in.
Mm-hmm. That's a great explanation. Thank you for that. It sounds just pragmatic. It just makes sense. And it's been in that sort of woo-woo space, in its history. And as I grow and evolve, I learn that woo-woo is pretty much the next door neighbor, if not linking arms with science. So here we have another beautiful scientific intervention for the relief of symptoms and correction of the neurophysiology, as shared by Kelli Melissa Reinhardt. Would you care? I think it's really important for people to hear about the nerve plexuses. You mentioned 3.
Yeah, so the head, heart, gut. So they're all, all interconnected. So before I learned all of these things,
Mhm.
I knew, people would always say, like, think with your heart, or think with your gut, or, or don't trust your gut, or do trust your gut, or, you heard all those sayings throughout life, but I never really understood the heart connection.
Mhm.
But I also understand feelings, and I knew they came from somewhere, right? And so when I learned really that we have 3 brains, or so head, heart, gut, and they're all interconnected, then it started just making so much more sense to me why people function in certain ways. And I guess it's more, because if one is not working, or they're not working together,
Mhm.
then you're out of that balance, or you're out of sync. And I never really fully understand that until I started really diving into NLP, and understanding that you can align all of them. And when all of them are functioning together, or my alignment, then our bodies, our minds, they're all working, it's all connected. And so they're actually functioning how they need to function. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert by any means in all of that, but I just know and understand through getting my certifications that once you do align those, and your brain and your gut are really truly connected, as a lot of research and science is showing,
Mhm.
that it affects our mental health, which is, like, one of the things that I always try to instill in people is, hey, what's going on in your gut, or hey, what's going on in your heart? And I don't always necessarily explain why I'm asking those questions, but
Mhm.
just understanding, because not everybody will fully understand. They're like, why are you talking about my gut or my heart?
Right.
But that's what's affecting your brain, right? But we all have mental health. We all have a brain. And so I don't know. I probably know, like, a tip of the scale of understanding of why it matters, but I do know that when we're in alignment with all 3 of those, that it really helps us move forward in life in general,
Mhm.
and we can be healthy with our minds, our bodies, and
Mm.
it's all interconnected.
It's really true. And there's still so many out there that don't believe that reject it altogether. And, eventually we all figure stuff out over time. But it's important for y'all at home to know why Kelli is talking about our three, I'm doing quotes and threes,
Yeah.
our three brains. So of course we know we have our brain, we have that. And then we have our heart. What we didn't know is that our heart tissue, all of our cardiac tissue, is full of and surrounded by neurons. It is a relay station back and forth. Also, at the base of the spinal cord, where it splits off into the legs, the lower extremities, that's where the gut is. And there is another neural plexus there, a third relay station. And as Kelli Melissa Reinhardt just shared with us, they communicate with each other. They absolutely do. And I will give you a perfect example for all of you moms and dads at home. How many times have you had your kid say, I really don't feel good, my stomach hurts, but you can't prove it, and you make the kid go to school? We all do it. Next time this happens, say, what's going on? Huh? We sometimes get belly aches when we're kind of upset up here. What's going on? So this is wonderful, wonderful information to share. Is there anything you want to add about is there anything you want to add about how people are influenced using neuro-linguistic programming? Is it a balancing of the neurological system that is the desired outcome?
When people come to me, so I specialize more in depression, anxiety, mental health, suicidal ideations, and in trauma. So most of the clients, at least that come to me, we're really focused on where did the trauma come from, and what can we start to uncover as to I'll give an example of maybe somebody is constantly getting in relationships that are abusive, or they are using substances and they don't know why they can't stop. Most of the time, and what I have found is that it's related to a trauma. Where that came from, it could be something that they know about, it could be something they don't know about, it could be potentially generational, like something that they've held on to that maybe is not theirs to hold on to, but it's a cycle or this pattern that we get into as we get older. And so what I'm able to do is just uncover a lot of that. But first, what we start with is we're building in resources, because I am not a person that will ever drop you straight into your trauma. Like, I want you to be healthy. I want you to be strong. I want you to feel empowered before we go into that place. And then once we get there, I don't need a lot of context. I don't need to know all of the things. You know it. And I'm just your guide. I'm helping you move and shift and change, and whatever comes up for you is perfectly okay. And then we can clear it out and then move forward really into the future. And how can we be a healthy, whole person as we move into the future? And it takes some time, but if you really do what I call the work, if you really want to sit down and do the work and really deep dive into what's truly going on without having to relive, then that's how I help people specifically with my coaching. And I just have found so much that we don't talk about the traumas, and we really, really should, because it is a part of our life. And most of the time, that's where it stems from. But in my nonprofit, what I'm trying to do, at least, is I'm trying to really go towards the youth and making sure that they have a healthy way of growing up, and we're stopping it before it becomes that adult challenge. And I love what you just said about the stomach aches, like, because that is something that I think that as parents, we're like, well, you have to go to school, right? I'm guilty of that with my son, but I also am asking the questions of like, how are you feeling? Where is it coming from? What else is going on? And we have those open conversations. Sometimes he wants to talk about it. Sometimes he doesn't want to talk about it. But I love that you mentioned that, because sometimes as parents, we get in the hustle bustle of, hey, we got to go to school, right? We can't miss very much school, but it's important, and a good reminder, even for me, that you said that, is talking more about, well, what's really going on? Are you really just tired? Are you like trying to avoid something? Like, what's going on, right? So I love that you mentioned that too.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, it's helpful for parents because we really do think that they're farting around and faking it. But if it keeps happening, and if there's other symptoms of school avoidance, it's a question to ask. And with, as Kelli has shared, curiosity, not fear. I'm scared of what's going on with my child, but I'm curious how I can help. Just really tiny little interventions are so important. So you were saying in your foundation how you're trying to stop the intergenerational trauma by providing the resources for kids now. What does that look like?
So we are currently in the process right now of redesigning what we call our Give Youth a Voice program. And ultimately, it's actually for middle school students specifically, because
Good
that's
age.
where, yeah, we know that most of the mental health challenges start
Mhm.
at that age. And if we can give them a voice and we can actually give them tools and resources and mentors and start having the conversations at that age,
Mhm.
then we can hopefully prevent them going into adulthood and having substance use or suicidal ideations, or, you know, the long list of things that can come up. And that age range, for whatever reason, my sister was an adult. She was 43, but that age range just keeps drawing me back and drawing me back. And I finally I was like, okay, we need to focus on youth because they don't have as many resources. There are lots of programs out there that are built for high schoolers, but not for middle schoolers. And it's getting younger and younger. I mean, I'm in Colorado, and suicide is the first leading cause of death for ages 10 to 14.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's
Oh,
getting younger. And it blows my mind that it's that young. I mean, I have a 9-year-old and I'm like, how would you even know? But they do. And I mean, of course, my
mhm.
son and I have much probably more in-depth conversations than most parents do, because he knows what I do. He helps us at events and he knows how my sister died. And we've had to have those open conversations. But I think the important part, and what we're trying to accomplish, is that we can go into, whether it's a youth group, it's a church group. We partner with charter schools, not so much public schools, because there's a lot of red tape, unfortunately, there. But we really are able to give them access to education around all sorts of different mental health challenges, but then things that will come up in their daily environment, like bullying, or ways to be able to be helpful and not hurtful. And then ultimately, we also have a mentorship program of it. And again, it's right in the middle of being redesigned, but I'm really excited what it's going to become and how we're going to be able to really help that age group. And everywhere I go and all the people that I talk to, they're like, yes, they need help. Yes, they need
Me
help.
too.
And so that emotion that I kept getting drawn back, I know that it is important, and what we're doing is going to be extremely beneficial for that age group specifically.
Absolutely. You mentioned mentors. Mentors are so critical. Do you have anybody in your life that served in that role for you?
I've actually had a lot. As I went out on this self-development journey of just understanding and wanting to gain tools and information and resources for myself, I found incredible mentors along the way. And they have been, I mean, just the pillars of everything that I'm doing. And one specifically, so the very first one really was, his name's George Carroll, and he was the person that put together the Greatest Year of Your Life seminar. He was the very first one that saw more in me than I actually saw in my house myself, but he also helped me break through all the fears that I was just living in. And he was probably one of the pivotal people in my transition. I mean, he was like, you should be a speaker. And I'm like, I am not speaking on stage. Yeah, I was like, no. But then the more and more we talked about it, I was like, I can do this. And if I'm going to do a nonprofit, like, I need to be able to get my message out. And now I have my own show, like you said earlier. So it definitely was one of those people. He no longer does the 3-day seminar, unfortunately, but he was definitely one of those people, because I joined what was called the Transformation Academy, and we walked on fire, we went skydiving, we walked on glass. I mean, there were so many things that, yeah, it was good for me though, like really good for me to get out of that pattern of fear and really move into my power, which has been, I mean, life transformative for me. So I very much talk about him and how much he has helped me throughout. And I mean, there's been multiple others along the way that have really helped me. Like in my TEDx talk, I talk about Chris Winfield and Jen Gottlieb, and they really helped me start down this PR or media journey that I was like, yeah, I'm not ever going on TV. What are you talking about? Right? Like, I always have these limiting beliefs. And then the more and more we talked about it, I was like, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And here I am. So there's been multiple just along the way. And I feel like I will never stop having mentors in my life, because I don't know everything. I will never know everything. And if I can have somebody that believes in me, that is willing to help me throughout this journey, and if I can be that for somebody else, I am always more than happy, because it just is a way to serve, but also a way to receive.
Yes. Drop the mic. Bam. Here on ICU with Karla Sue and the I Have Today TV network and the E360 TV network, we provide you such amazing people with amazing stories so that you can experience these transformations for yourself. I'm giving you a wide range of people. We all are, because all of our voices matter, and we want to give you as many resources as we can. And Kelli Melissa just said something. I'm going to paraphrase it. This is so powerful. She knows, and I know, when we're working with our people, we know you're going to be okay. We can see it playing out. We know how this stuff works. But for those of you feeling it, there's not a light at the end of the tunnel sometimes. So please believe in our belief in you. We've made a whole network for that. So Kelli, thank you for bringing up the belief that we are going to carry people through until they have their own belief. And we're starting with middle schoolers are a nightmare. I'm sorry. They just really, I mean, they're figuring stuff out, and they can be so mean, and they don't know what they're doing. So that's like a really important age to serve. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share about your foundation before we go on to music?
If you were just talking about resources, so if there is anybody and that belief that if you can't get through it, like, to hold on to our belief, but if you also need additional resources, we have a whole trusted resource hub on our website. So please go to the website, and if you need somebody to help navigate the resources, we're continually growing that resource too. And so if you need some help or need somebody to talk to, a coach or anybody in that space, feel free to go to our website, which is makementalhealthmatter.org. And I'm sure I'll share it later too. But you can check out our trusted resource hub if you do need any resources.
That'll be great. And that'll be in the links below as well. So here at ICU with Karla Sue, because I am Karla Sue and because I am a musician and a singer, I like to think about how music impacts our lives for the better, to use it as just another tool in our toolbox. We've talked earlier, we were talking about different songs. Can you share with our audience this moment, the song that resonates with our conversation the most and you the most of those three? Earlier it was Hugh
Yeah.
Jackman and his arms, just saying.
Yeah. I think it still is A Million Dreams because
Mm-hmm.
I every single time I hear that from A Greatest Showman, I every single time I hear that, that was kind of the first song that I started down that personal development journey, and I put it into a like virtual um I'm like, what are they called? When you put a whole bunch of things on a board.
Oh, vision board.
Vision board, thank you. I'm like, what is the word? Yeah, I put it on a vision board at one point in time, and every single time I hear that, it takes me back to those moments when the journey began, but then it also shifts me into where I'm at now. And of course, I have a million dreams of where I want this nonprofit to go and where I would love for people to be able to share in this journey and us being able to impact people's lives. But I think that song, with what we were talking about, there are so many things in life,
Mm-hmm.
and we can really truly take our dreams and transform them into whatever we want them to be, no matter what other people believe or think about us. We can truly have that imagination. And if you think about Walt Disney, he had a dream and he made it possible through all of the things that he accomplished. And that started with a dream. So it is possible to go from a dream into reality. And it's just something that I think I have held on to for so long. And no matter when I hear it or where I hear it, it just like has this amazing effect on my brain. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we can do this. And I think that's my biggest takeaway from that song.
I love it. I love it. I was taking notes and writing down lyrics. A Million Dreams, the refrain is, a million dreams is all it's going to take. A million dreams for the world we are going to make. So inclusive, so powerful. What would you say to people who say dreams aren't that important? Just, be a good person, get a job. What do you think about dreams?
I think they're the most powerful things that we can have. And I'm not talking about the dreams when you lay your head down at night to sleep. And maybe it's part of those dreams, but the dreams that translate into goals and the goals that translate into reality. And then the reality that you can start to have or shift into the wins of the day. And I think all of those things, like we were talking about how the head, heart, and gut are interconnected. I feel like all of those are really interconnected because that's what can move us forward in life. And maybe you feel like your dreams right now are not taking you to where you want to be in life. But I also want you to know that you have a lot of choice. You have the capacity to be able to shift and change those dreams into the reality or into the goal, which goes into the reality. And that's the coolest part about being human, is that we have that control and we have the ability to make those choices.
It sounds preposterous to so many people. It is truly that simple. What we require, though, is we require a lot of support and we require a lot of information. So it's just, that is profound. A million dreams is all it's going to take. A million dreams for the world we're going to make. We can do it. It's like that Apple commercial. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. Right? Thank you for sharing that with me. If I ever learn anything about technology, I will put a link to that song on my Facebook profile because it is a good one. And even if you can't see Hugh Jackman and his arms, it is worth putting on repeat. I'm so bad. Okay, movement. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm a dancer. What we do here is we focus. It's a mindful practice and it's a movement practice. And I try to conjure up, if you could conjure up, what did you look like when this feels ugly and we're not going to stay here long. What did it feel like when you found out about your sister's passing? And then we're going to correct it through movement. Okay.
So you want me to like portray what I look like? Oh.
Yeah, like whatever.
I was more shocked. I was like, what is happening? Like I just felt, just like shocked. That was my feeling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is shock. This perpetuates shock. We're gonna confirm shock. We keep affirming, this is too much. I'm stressed out. This is blowing my mind. I cannot take this. And it may be very true at the time. But here is, I want these movement suggestions to be first response interventions for people when they start to feel the unease, because you can get it early and it's better. So here's Kelli with wide eyes and huge hands. What would be the opposite energy? So we're frantic, we're panicked, we're fearful, we're shocked. What is the opposite of fearful and shocked? Calm. Keep going. Let's move while we're talking about the words. Calm.
Relaxed.
Okay.
Centered.
Ooh. Now notice we're both, oh my God, we're both swaying. Did you have your eyes closed too?
I saw you swaying and I was like, ooh, I'm going to go with that.
Movement just feels good, people.
Yeah.
Do movement. You don't have to work out like a maniac to do movement in your life. So what we just did is we went from the emotion, the visual representation of fear and shock and horror to, it didn't go away, did it? It feels better to me. How does it feel to you?
No, it feels better. I want to just like wiggle and like get it all out like you were doing.
Feels good. I made up this practice and then I know I need to wrap up, but I call it, it's sort of like Tai Chi, but I have a lot of respect for Tai Chi and I have no expertise. So I call it my moving energy around practice. And what I do, it's part of that kind of flow, feeling your center, and you can waver from your center, but you know where it is and you come back to it. And then I just start moving. And if you do slow movement and pay attention, try it with me, will you? Just for a sec. Slow movement. Isn't it just generally calming?
Yes.
So I probably should learn Tai Chi, but until then, you get my made up moving energy around.
I like it. Yes.
Let us summarize what we've learned today. What we've learned today is that the human spirit is resilient and that we are not forced to be resourceful until we're forced to be resourceful. And Kelli had this experience with the loss of her sister, and she has created not only a not-for-profit foundation that's in education for latency age kids, that's the toughest age, middle school. She also has her presence in her TV show on E360 TV and a wealth of compassion and wisdom to share with you. How can we find you?
The best place is the website. So it's makementalhealthmatter.org If you happen to do .com, it will take you there too. But that is the best place to find the information. And we're across all the social media channels. So it's not hard to find. You can even Google my name and there's lots that pops up too.
That's wonderful. I really, really look forward to continuing to follow your work. I look forward to having you back on. You are a treasure chest of just joy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So for our audience out there and for Kelli, on behalf of Kelli and on behalf of our brilliant producer, Portia Booker, I Have Today TV and E360 TV, remember, we are here. We are here for you, and we'll give you everything we can, and you figure out what sticks for you. We're here for you, and we see you. Namaste, Kelli.
Namaste.
On the surface